Hey guys, Dre here, back at it once again with another video for you, and welcome to our latest Top Gear episode review. This time we'll be looking at Top Gear Series 22, the latest series, and episode 7, which aired last night on BBC Two, and it airs tonight on BBC America. Now, I know some Americans are going to have issues with this, obviously, because, you know, Top Gear comes out a day late in America, so obviously some minor spoilers into the episode. If you don't want to know about stuff that happened, you have my permission to wait today and come back at 24 hours time or something. But yeah, this was an interesting episode, but not for the reasons you'd expect, and I'll explain why as the review goes on. So the episode started off with a double review, and yeah, I wasn't too keen on this one, and I'll tell you why in a minute. It was a new Jaguar F-Type, the one with the V8 engine. It's got 540 horsepower, so basically incredibly fast. I like the Jag a lot, actually. You know, it looked very nice. I'm not sure about the orange, but it looked nice. You know, the boot was decent. I like the hat joke they had, and then had all the hats in the car boot. That was quite fun. And you know what? This whole double review I'm talking about was really well filmed. I liked some of the cinematography that was involved in it, like using the filters on the Eagle part of the review, and you know, Jeremy walking out of a big cloud of smoke. That was actually quite well done. I liked the cinematography in the review. But it felt very repetitive as opposed to last week's episode. It's something that Jeremy's done on quite a number of occasions in some of his car reviews, where he's mentioned that he's talked about a brand new car, mentioned some of its flaws, even though he actually said he quite liked the new Jag. He mentioned some of its flaws, and then goes on to something that's more expensive and more exclusive, and compares it to that instead. And he breaks out this new Eagle remade, Eagle Low Drag GT, I think it was called. And it's from the same company that brought out the Speedster, which they brought out on Top Gear and a couple of other DVDs, well, first some of Clarkson's DVDs a couple of years ago. And this was their latest version. They were remaking a Jaguar prototype racing car from the 1960s. And basically they redid it and handcrafted it to perfection, basically. And yeah, it was really nice seeing, you know, it was a beautiful looking car. I was able to go around corners, it looked nice, was quite powerful, and whatnot, you know, looked elegant, gorgeous, all that good stuff. The problem, you're comparing a car that costs 80 grand to a car that costs 840,000. Doesn't really make much sense in my book. And if anyone's having flashbacks to last week's episode, that's the problem I have with this review. Jeremy, for 2 weeks in a row, like Hammond did last week, was reviewing, Clarkson did last week, he was reviewing the Lexus RCF, didn't like it, and then broke out on LFA for some kind of comparison of what Lexus can do. Well, of course the LFA is going to be better, and the same thing applies here. He's comparing it to a handcrafted, hand-built remake from Eagle, who put such an incredible amount of attention to detail into its cars, and you really think that's a fair and valid comparison? It isn't. It's silly. You know, you can't compare a car that costs 80 grand to one that costs 800,000 and is stupidly exclusive. It just didn't make much sense to me, but it's a shame because I thought it was a really good review otherwise. Jag set a decent lap time as well. I think it matched the Audi R8 V10 from a few years ago, which is kind of irrelevant now, really, because there's a new R8 coming out later this year. The news was interesting. They mentioned how Ferrari are now up for doing a triple test around the track. So Ferrari have kind of warmed up to the idea now. I think they've realised the publicity on being on Top Gear, I think, is probably worth a little bit more than, you know, playing by the rules and bending their own rules. I mean, if you've ever read Chris Harris's work, you'll know about the problems that Ferrari have when it comes to auto car reviews and whatnot. So check that out if you get a chance. I might put a link in the description for that. Pardon me. But they mentioned that Ferrari are now a little bit more warm on the idea of doing a triple test. McLaren have always been down for it, and Porsche, apparently they're now waiting on Porsche to find them a car. Because they only built 918 Porsche 918s, and I don't think they have any anymore, because I think they've made all of them and sold them off. So now it's just a matter of getting one down to the track for this to actually be a thing now. So, hooray. Also, I'm kind of annoyed there was a bit of a lack of a showcase towards the Geneva auto show that came through last week. I don't know if they're saving that for next week's show, but stuff like the Koenigsegg Regera, which is the 1800 horsepower hybrid they're talking about with no gearbox, I would have loved to have seen them talk about that and how unique it is. I'd love for them to mention the new Aventador SV, which has got 750 horsepower, which would have also been nice. So kind of a lack of Geneva talk was kind of annoying. Again, maybe they're saving it for next week's show, I don't know. I know I'm probably putting a little bit too much stock into a filler segment, which is what the news has always kind of been, really. But, you know, that's the thing. Then Hammond reviewed the Mazda MX-5, which I thought was, you know, another solid review. Nothing special or anything. It was just him, you know, Hammond driving around some mountains, really, and, you know, looking nice in a, you know, Mazda. Which, you know, I like that he mentioned the attention to detail that Mazda go to make the perfect MX-5. You know, some of the weight-saving methods, like, you know, cutting holes in the windscreen glass to save weight and whatnot. And, you know, I thought it was a good review. I thought, you know, I'm glad that Top Gear are being a little bit more balanced this week and reviewing other cars, not just, you know, big fancy shouty ones all the time. It made for a more well-rounded episode, so I'm not going to complain about that. The star in a reasonably priced car this week was Nicholas Hoult. You may know him from a lot of, he's an actor from a lot of other things like About a Boy, Skins, which I know a lot of teenagers watched back in the day, like I did. I mean, the dude got to plough hot female actresses for a living. I mean, what else could you do? X-Men First Class as well, and he's in the new Mad Max film coming out later this year. He was alright, you know, proper petrol head, which is always nice to see, and set a very, very fast 144.7 around the board, so props to him for that. Just a 10th off Ollie Murs, who obviously broke the lap record a couple of weeks ago. So props to Nicholas. That was a good interview segment again. Just, you know, it was good filler. I can't complain over good filler. But the episode ended off with the main segment of a World Rallycross event, you know, a follow-on from a segment they did 3 years ago where they were talking about how fun Rallycross was and how they were using cars from, you know, classified ads that were going for about 500 quid basically. And instead we're going to do a World Rallycross event instead of using 600 brake horsepower hot hatchbacks like, you know, like minis, like, you know, stuff like that basically, using 600 brake horsepower, you know, those kind of big Rallycross cars you see. And they brought down Tanner Foust for it as well, and Tanner was training James around the track as well. It's the same track they used in Kent, the same one they used for the last Rallycross segment they did. So yeah, I thought it's a shame really. I think this whole segment was kind of underwhelming, and there's a couple of reasons why. One, you have Tanner Foust and Petter Solberg, who is a World Rallycross champion and former World Rally champion, who was down there and criminally underused in my opinion. You've got Petter Solberg and Tanner Foust down there. That's enough to carry the segment on its own. And, you know, because the action was great, and I loved the action, but obviously the focus was going to be on James, who was shit. And anyone who knows Top Gear knows that was going to be a thing. You know, it was kind of obvious that, you know, James was going to suck at Rallycross, because one, he's the slowest of the three, and two, well, you're talking about the best Rallycross drivers in the world here going to this event, so of course he's going to suck. So it was really predictable from that aspect, and I reckon Top Gear probably knew that as well, hence why they had Jeremy and Hammond be the two spotters for the Joker lap, basically. And yeah, they were just being really annoying. They weren't being funny at all. I think they were literally just there to provide some artificial entertainment to keep them busy, basically, because we all knew James just driving the car and losing to a bunch of Rallycross dudes was not going to probably make a very entertaining segment overall. It's a shame, because I think this segment had a lot of potential, but I think it was just, on the whole, underdone, underbaked, and unoriginal. I mean, it's like last week's show again, where they'd done something they've already kind of done before, where, you know, they mentioned on last week's show, it was, you know, oh shoot, hang on, yeah, last week they brought back the LFA again for the 4th time on Top Gear history. They brought that back, and now they're going back and doing Rallycross again. It's a little bit unoriginal, and it makes it less exciting to watch when you kind of know what's going to happen. I know Top Gear is a show in its 22nd series, and I know being original is going to be hard, but I could have called everything that happened in that Rallycross segment. So the whole thing just kind of led to a solid, but overall kind of bland and repetitive episode, really. Like, the reviews were well shot and well done, I enjoyed them, but Jeremy's style of car review is getting a little bit grated, because it's not the first time he's gone back to the past or found something bigger and shinier to compare his new ride to. The Ferrari 599 review is another example of that, where he's done that before. It's like, oh, I'd rather have this old classic Ferrari instead, which no one's going to be able to buy because it's super rare. Like, what's the point? Really. And he did it again in this review. And overall, just a nothing special kind of filler episode, really. The second in a row, really, more than anything else. This was a little bit better than last week's episode, but to me, I think this episode had some lost potential. The first 45 minutes was solid, if unspectacular. If you had a really good Rallycross segment at the end, I think this could have been a 7 or an 8 out of 10 kind of episode, and it'd be just a good overall package of not very much to criticise. But when last week's episode happened, the timing of it, and then an episode which copied from other segments in the past, yeah, it's kind of overall a little bit underwhelming for me. So the show gets a 6 out of 10 for me. So let me know what you guys thought of this week's Top Gear episode. Leave your comments as always, and stick around. A lot of cool stuff coming on this channel this week, trust me. So until next time, I've been Harrison101. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.